Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, salamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. So we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending peace and blessings upon his last and final messenger, Muhammad. Everyone, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. If you're watching live, please respond to the salam in the chat. Also, tell me where you're watching from. If you are watching live in the chat, please, now or later. I really thank everyone for being here. I want to say that. It means a lot to me that you are here and that you're watching this. For the chat, please, questions, comments are very welcome, as are likes, shares, and subscribes. You know, the more interaction that is going on with the video, the more that it helps the algorithm. The algorithm has been fairly friendly to me lately, so I would like to take advantage of that, inshallah, with your help, especially those of you who've been watching me for a while now. Very grateful to all of you. You know, the sharing too, even if you just send the link to one person using the share thing under the screen, it's helpful. And I think we can all agree we need, as a Muslim community, we need more places where we are trying to problem solve and learn about how we can better engage our children and how we can accomplish our goals and raise a happy, healthy, productive Muslim community and Muslim next generation. So your support with that is very appreciated. In the chat, I'm going to go through the training, go through anything. Please comment as it goes along, as you see fit. Once I'm done, maybe, the hope is to go 45 minutes to an hour. Then I'll scroll through the chat. If I can find some questions or something I want to highlight that seems relevant, I'll do that, but maybe it'll get relegated to a separate place. So if you leave a question in the chat and it's not answered, please comment, come back to the video and comment the question later or the situation that you want addressed. Again, that helps the algorithm. I'll respond to it, look to it, helps the interaction more. If you are in the chat, please don't be negative in the chat and don't get into arguments with people in the chat. Don't be a troll, please. And if anyone sees that type of thing, please report it. Please don't respond to trolls, and don't get into arguing in the chat because sometimes that's a problem. We do want to stay focused on the learning continuum in general. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in his book, and I'm a struggling reader of the Quran. May Allah help all of us, aid all of us who are trying to learn to read the Quran better, but I will read the ayah here and translate it. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusikum ahlikum naran waquduhan nas wal hijarah, which translates into, O you who believe, save yourselves and your families from a fire, the fuel of which is men and stones. Brothers and sisters, we have so much anxiety about young people and the next generation and all the challenges in the Muslim community. So I'm glad that people are here so that we can start learning how to get better at that, build on work that others have already done to get better in that. Those of you who don't know me, of course, I'm a father myself, but I've also been a teacher for 12 years. Pretty much all grades, K through 12, have a lot of nonstop experience interacting with young people. So I'm doing this program so that the Muslims can benefit from that. Because in that experience, I've learned there are some predictable things that work with young people. There's some understandings you need to have that are going to enable you to be more effective with young people. And also, there are many things that people do a lot that they often think are good things, or something in their background makes them think that that's the thing to do, or they're just not thinking about it intentionally, and that's causing all types of pitfalls. So as much anxiety as there is about youth in the Muslim community, I spend most of my time around Muslim high schoolers in the inner city, in a public school secular environment where, as we know, they're not always acting the way that we would exactly like them to act. Being in that environment and being around them, I don't share in the anxiety that people have about the Muslim youth, to the same extent as a lot of people. Is it because I think the youth are all great and they're all doing exactly what we want them to do and they're all on a good path going towards a bright future? Not necessarily. It's not that I think that. However, in my work and time with young people, I've learned that you can impact them, you can influence them, you can have success with them if you learn and know what you're doing. And it's that which gives me hope, and thinks that, and I think there's great promise for us to leverage the strong care that we do have about young people in the Muslim community. And that's something that we need to be proud of. And that's something that we can't let people turn against us. The fact that we care about young people, it's something important about us. So, understanding our predicament as Muslims in the Muslim world. We all know the Muslim world is going through a general phenomenon of experiencing more societal development, and it's going on for several generations. It's a fallout of colonization and globalization. More societal development, and I mean technological development here, both in the Muslim world, as well as more people from the Muslim world transplanting themselves into the West, which is further along on the continuum of technological and societal development, if you want to call it that. More societal and technological development in a society creates the phenomenon of people essentially having to have, and I say having to have, a longer childhood and the period of time that we call adolescence. Now, adolescence, there is a neurological basis for its existence as well. But when you have a more developed society, it particularly manifests as people essentially having a longer childhood, because the more a society develops, the more, or I should say, the less its dependence on subsistence and food is linked to physical labor, and the more it is linked to intellectual work. Therefore, the people who can fulfill the adult roles in society, they have to develop mentally and intellectually and mature intellectually more before they have the capacity to fill the adult roles, versus where in less developed societies they can get into the adult roles quicker because the adult roles and the subsistence of the society is more linked to physical labor. Technological development also creates more exposure to individualism because of this outstretched period of adolescence. People have more free time, more things to do, and of course, as we all know, much more exposure to media, which means much more exposure to things outside of our control, and everyone's well aware of that in the modern times. What the effect that this has overall is it creates an erosion of what you might call the village approach of raising children. What is meant by the village approach of raising children is you have an approach in the society of raising children where everyone is on the same page and everyone is reinforcing the same thing. And you can depend on the people outside the home to set limits and reinforce upon your child the same things that you want reinforced upon them. When you have that type of village and communal support that all societies traditionally have and is quickly being eroded away all over the world in the modern times, when you have that type of village traditional support, parenting can be more impulsive and it can be more reactionary, meaning you don't have to think so explicitly and plan so explicitly about what you do. The customs are already set. The standards are already set. Things that work for that more enclosed society has already been established, and no one's trying to challenge it. But in the modern world, you don't have that luxury of communal support. So in the modern world and the globalized world in 2022, to accomplish our goals with our youth, parenting has to be more intentional, and any type of teaching has to be more intentional, whether it's as a parent, a teacher, a mentor, or a leader, teacher in the masjid, or wherever, or just as a neighbor, older person than someone. Parenting and our approach with young people, it has to be learned and it has to be more intentional. If it's not, what we're likely to do is things that are impulsive, things that are reactionary, and those things are predictable. They're not predictable to the inexperienced older person who's doing it. but they're predictable to people who want to take advantage of the effects that impulsive parenting and that reactionary parenting has on young people. Excuse me. And as I'm sure we all have a good idea, in the West, the entertainment industry, social media companies, the world of marketing, they have that down, that manipulation of young people down to a science. So the first overall lesson that needs to be understood about parenting our kids and having success with young people. If I could isolate the best parenting advice into just 2 words, which of course it's more complicated than that, but we need some baseline things to understand and to remember to go back to. The most important advice in having success with young people is to be calm. 12 years of working with young people nonstop, having to figure out for myself and learn how to go from being a failure to being successful in the world of teaching, and then testing the effect and testing the methods in other places. This is the most important thing that people need to understand, is being calm with young people. Now, impulsive and reactive parenting. Say a little bit more on being calm. The impulsive and reactive parenting, it operates on stress reactions that young people naturally put into older people when they test boundaries. I don't think that I need to explain to everyone the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and the understanding that being calm, being relaxed, having a disposition that draws people to you and that people respect, and being an example for other people, that this is a part of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and that the Prophet ﷺ, he was attentive to young people and teaching them. He was patient with young people and people who triggered others or made others upset. So I don't think I have to tell the people watching about the narration of the Prophet ﷺ when the man urinated in the masjid, and some of the companions, they wanted to rush over and beat him up, and the Prophet stopped them and he just told them to clean it up, and they went on. I don't think I need to tell about the narration of the Prophet ﷺ when the young man came to him and asked him to make zina halal. And while some of the companions yelled at that young man and got angry at him right away, the Prophet, according to the narration, he came close to that young man. He asked him to sit down, and then he followed it up with reflective questions. I don't think I need to tell people about the narration of the Prophet ﷺ when a Yehudi passed by him and wished death upon him. And Aisha, young Aisha, she cursed that person back. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Oh, Aisha, don't you know that Allah loves kindness and leniency to be put into all things, and to just reply to them and upon you." Calm reaction. I don't think I need to remind that. Now, cultures get away from that. Cultures get away from the Sunnah, as we know. Our nafs get away from the Sunnah. So our challenge as adults is really to analyze and appreciate how we need to be calm and learn some practical things about it. And this is where we're beginning from, especially when we get into tense interactions with young people, which they're always going to try and induce upon us because it's part of their learning process that they test boundaries. So impulsive and reactive parenting, again, it involves acting on stress reactions. How do you know you're having a stress reaction? There's some common indicators to it. The muscles tense up. Oftentimes, sweat comes from the brow or maybe the armpits. The face strains, and the teeth clench is a big thing. And if that stress reaction takes hold too much, and stress reaction is what we're referred to when we talk about being triggered. I'm not talking about like being offended in this kind of political way people talk about it. The origin of that understanding term in psychology, you're triggered when something induces a stress reaction upon you. If the indicators of a stress reaction take hold too much, it causes adrenaline to release in your bloodstream. If adrenaline releases in your bloodstream, you will be too amped up to be able to fully control yourself, and you'll be too amped up to think clearly. And you being amped up is going to transfer the stress reaction onto young people. And this is how relationships break down and how traps are set for us in our relationship with young people. Now, I theorize that in more traditional societies, in more enclosed societies, in societies where the village approach of raising kids is at play and everyone is more on the same page, people can operate on stress reactions more, which might look like raising the voice, perhaps to the point of yelling, snapping at them. I might mean literal snapping. People have different cultural reactions to that, but verbally snapping. Okay, using sarcasm maybe, or what we might call shaming, or something that uses your superior intellect to the young person to shame them in some way or try to make them feel bad. As I said, tense facial expressions, especially facial expressions that involve like this kind of villain look of your brow getting bunched up like that, which might signal disgust. It might signal anger. It might signal confusion too. That's a common first reaction when kids start going outside the norm or outside the expectations, and we don't like it, and our stress is triggered in that. Words meant to induce guilt, as I said before, are often the first thing that comes out when we're acting upon the stress reaction. And actions with the limbs will also follow too, of which there is a continuum. And then on the severe end of the continuum is perhaps even hitting kids. Now, in traditional cultures where you don't have to be so intentional and so strategic about raising kids because everyone's supporting everyone, you can operate on these things. You can operate on these things. And not only can you operate on them, but you actually won't have to do them as much. You won't have to do them as much because everyone is reinforcing them. So when these types of reactions happen, there's a continuum to all of them. It's all a stress reaction. There's some reactions that are more severe than others, depending on how much the person is allowing themselves to act on the stress reaction. When you have everyone reinforcing the same thing in the society, you won't have to be so severe, actually, is what I theorize. Why? Let's take an example, a very concrete example to illustrate what we're talking about. And the concrete example, it's a metaphor or an allegory for the more complex and abstract things. Let's say there's a culture where culturally their thing is all the boys and all the men, they have very, very short hair all the time, practically like a shaved head. It's not seen as culturally appropriate. It's not acceptable to people for the men to let their hair grow out too far. Now, let's say you have a young boy growing up in this society where everyone has this same expectation. Well, he's not likely to get his hair grown out very far in the first place because of that. But secondly, when his hair starts to just grow out a little bit, he's going to be reminded about it very quickly. And he's not as likely to have done it intentionally. Maybe he just forgot for a day or two to do the shaving, or his mother, if she does it, she got busy for a day or two. It grew out a little bit. So he's got to go to school that one day with his hair growing out a little bit more, just a little bit beyond what the cultural expectations are. Well, the first adult who sees him is going to give him some kind of look and may say to him, "Hey, what's with your hair?" Or, "Hey, you need to cut your hair." Teachers at school probably say the same thing. Even his peers, the kids themselves, they might be so attuned to the cultural expectations that they will reinforce it as well. So that effect of going out that day with your hair just a little bit grown out, it hasn't even gotten that much. It's going to cause that young boy, he's going to go home. He might even ask mom, "Hey, shave my head." Or he makes sure that he does it because he doesn't want to get all those same things the next day. So fitting into the cultural expectations becomes very easy for him, much easier. Now, if you take that same boy and you take his family and you transplant them to the other end of the world, into Western society or more developed society, or even as his own society develops more and he's more exposed to things on, let's say, TikTok, he's investing more of his heart and mind into what he is seeing through media. As that process takes place, His whole relationship to his hair could look different. I'm sorry. He'll go out with the hair growing out. He's not going to have this reinforcement. Perhaps even as it grows out more, maybe he's even getting positive comments about it. Maybe mom and dad are too busy working at home to attend to his hair as he gets older. Also, too, a very strong possibility that he's looking at things on media, that he's seeing cool looking people that other people are talking about, and they have very long hair too. So now the long hair becomes desirable for him. And if we want to keep this young man within this cultural expectation, and I'm not saying that you have to, I'm intentionally using an example that doesn't relate to something haram or halal. If we want to keep that young man within that cultural expectation, well, what has to happen now? Well, now it has to be the parents who do the reinforcing. They have to do all these things. And if they have not learned themselves, which is likely, or if they came to this new world that they're in as adults, they are likely to fall on the habits that they know from the home culture and from that practice. So they will resort to these things to redirect him to get the haircut. But when they are doing that, this young man now, he has a whole lot more emotional investment in how long his hair has gotten. So he's not going to be just responsive to it right away. Just the little facial expression, it's not going to work. He's going to put up a defense about it. He's going to get defensive, build his argument about it, be defensive. In turn, if the parents don't know what to do instead in this new complex situation, they will continue with these things, and they'll not only continue with them, but they will up the ante with them. And the result of that is the young man, he will become more and more hardened to those things. And his defense walls against the parents will build up even stronger. And it could result in the whole relationship breaking down to the point where later in life, he maybe decides that he wants a break or doesn't want anything to do with those parents. And perhaps what those parents represented to him as well. And a'udhu billah, if he associates Islam and being Muslim with those types of experiences, then that will corrupt his whole relationships and feelings towards the deen. And that will cause him an identity conflict when he gets older, which can go into all different types of paths. So this is the dilemma that we're in. Now, deliberate and practice parenting controls. And we're going to be looking at some examples and some non-examples of what to do with these things. And what we are really focusing on today is body language. So much with parenting, and when parents ask questions and people want to know things, they want to know about what to say to kids. They want to know about what type of reasoning to use with kids. And there are things to say to kids that might be better than other things to say. There is certain types of ways to reason and teach kids that are better than others, and we will get into that. But a huge emphasis of the lesson today is that no matter what we say to kids, it has to be prefronted with an approach towards them that is going to command respect from them. It's not going to stress them out. It's not going to compromise our authority with them, and it is going to increase respect with them. Relationship building is a whole thing to talk about that we'll get more into. But today, we're really focused on body language, and especially body language of what to do when kids trigger us, though there's lessons to take from it overall with our overall approach to them, the underlying rule of which is to be calm. Be as calm as you can. So proactive body language, deliberate and practice parenting, controls. Number 1, the breathing. Number 2, facial expression. 3, body language. It seems like a lot of work, but the micro level behaviors that we have with kids, we have to understand that we have to have a deliberate plan and process with those types of things, and we have to have understanding about the way that our kids are going to experience us. So what we're about to do, we're going to watch some videos first of some interactions between adults and young people that are non-examples. They're not what we want, and they're not good. Analyze them Consider them a little bit. Then I'm going to go through a series of 3 videos or so that focus on these 3, some key things to do when kids trigger you with these 3 things: breathing, facial expression, body language. They'll teach you some things to do directly. My expectation from you as students is that you practice those things along with the videos. You deliberately practice it. And it might feel awkward, might feel like something you're not used to, might feel weird. But that awkwardness is something you have to get over if you actually want to make progress in acquiring a new skill. And it's something that you have to try a little bit of trust in. And I would not teach this stuff if I did not know, again, over 12 years experience, nonstop work with young people across ages and across cultures, if I have not seen these things work before my very eyes. There is more to our connection, building relationships, and teaching of young people than these things, but these are key important things. And everyone is worried about the difficult interactions that we are having with kids. So I'm starting the course by getting directly to these things. Let's watch some video. Let's watch some teachers. Okay? The videos, the non-examples are all going to be videos of teachers in classrooms. And you can't see initially what went wrong because these are things where something starts going wrong and then a kid whips out the phone and we have a tense interaction going on. But we're going to watch it and analyze it a little bit. Inshallah, the sound will be on.
I'm a little sick of what you got to say about this, okay? You showed all this time that you have no clue what's going on here because you got an attitude about this. And this is nonsense. I've been talking to everybody in here, okay?
Okay, just a little bit there. First of all, if you cannot hear the sound, let me know in the chat. Okay, I will keep the chat in my view right now if you can't hear the sound, but I think you can. All right, just that little clip. Now, next week we'll talk about what's being said and what to say with kids more when they talk back, like this young man did. But let's just consider the body language, what we saw. First of all, the arms flared out. There's actually the pose this guy is in, with his fist on the hips and his elbows way flared out. Sometimes it's the hands and so on. There's actually a term for that. It's called pheasant posturing or chicken posturing because he looks kind of like a chicken. He looks kind of like a chicken. You know, as he gets up, he gets his hands all up. Okay. This is a big, this is what you do when you're stressed. The more stressed you are, the higher up your hands are going to go. You know, if you're extremely excited, your hands will go very high as well. But look also at the body language of the students. Okay, this girl next to her, what is she doing? She's covering her face like she wants to escape from this. You might have seen the young man in the back, like really stretching his arms out. Okay, this is showing the transfer of tension that is going on from the teacher to all the students, everyone involved, even the ones who aren't being talked to directly. Now, the one who's being talked to directly, he's kind of slunked back, and he's talking back. Now, you see these when teachers do this type of thing, and I did it myself in my beginning years of a teacher, saw it a lot there. I've done lots of co-teaching in my career. I've seen and observing. I've seen so many teachers fall into these pitfalls. This having the hands on the face thing, that's actually common for kids to do when this type of interaction is going on. Now, when kids get this type of interaction, they get tension in their face that is actually caused by their tear ducts being activated. And depending on the situation, certainly if their peers are around, and certainly if they don't have the trust with the adults in the room, they're not gonna want to cry. They're not gonna let that release of crying happen. But this burning tension in their face, that is what is actually causing it, is their tear ducts being stressed out. Now, the young man who's sitting, if you look at his face closely, you can kind of see the wear of that same tension happening to him. Now, kids who get this type of interaction a lot, what happens over time, it won't be a safe enough situation for them to cry through the stress that they're feeling and sort of the sense of failure that they're feeling, because that's oftentimes what's accompanied here. If we were to watch the whole video, and maybe I'll do a more extensive breakdown of this video in particular later, in the back and forth, it gets to a point where the young man says, he says that this class is hard, and like, I don't get going hard. And the teacher's like, it's not hard, type of reaction. A common thing that causes misbehavior, especially of boys in classes, is the learning. They're experiencing the learning as being too complex, and they don't get what's going on. And the misbehavior is a fight against boredom and a front to cover that they don't get what's going on. Now, as he experiences this tension behind his eyes, the more he experiences in his life, the more he is going to learn to deaden that reaction because it doesn't feel comfortable. And he'll go away from this reaction. He'll start thinking about how he can deaden his reaction to that. And with this young man, it's probably not the very first time he's been talked to like this, because he's talking back. A lot of times kids, the first time they get this type of talk, they won't talk back. But as they are numbing themselves to their own reaction to it over time, they start thinking about how they can come back and how they can build up the courage to come back from it. Now, this amounts to a deadening of kids' relationships with that adult, and sometimes with adults in general. And when they deaden that relationship, the place that they're going to turn for emotional comfort, safety, and satisfaction and validation is to their peers or to media or a combination of both, which is a very dangerous and unhealthy place for them to turn. And, if you watch this guy going, you just ask yourself.
Yes, I have been. And telling me I don't know how to teach. I've been doing training all over North America, and I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, he does.
And when you sit back and rip papers up, and you don't.
I mean, look at that girl bearing her hands in her face. Now ask yourself, does this guy look like he has control over the situation? Put it in the chat, yes or no. Does he look like he has control over the situation? He clearly does not. And the kids know that, and it's unnerving for them, and they want to escape from it. Now, what also eventually happens in these situations is the kids laugh. The kids will start laughing because of how silly the guy looks. Because he's operating on his own stress reactions, he doesn't realize how silly and not in control he does look. And the laughing, it becomes a way for the kids to release this tension that's going on in their minds. And it becomes a coping mechanism. And what they start telling themselves about that adult is, he's crazy. He's got issues. Something like this. Every year I have students who come to me. They complain about whatever teacher is stressing them out in the school that year, that teacher has issues and that teacher is crazy. Now, what about kids who are experiencing this type of interaction constantly with their parents over time? It is different when they experience it with their parents. When they're younger, they'll be more reactive to it because they want to please their parents. As they get older, they'll go through this numbing process with their parents. And these constant interactions like this, in adolescence, it will motivate them to lie to their parents a lot, to avoid trouble and to avoid these interactions as much as possible, because the way that teenage psychology works, it's not going to stop them from seeking out neurological needs that they have that cause them to seek out new experience and excitement that we have to understand. I'll talk more about that specific thing in a later session or video. And the phenomenon of for their own self-protection of the young person rationalizing that this adult who's talking to me this way, they're actually crazy. The problem's actually with them. With young people and their parents, that phenomenon takes place over time. So maybe early in adolescence, they start getting so sick of these types of interactions and wanting to avoid it. And that's where the line starts. But by the time they get into late adolescence or early adulthood, we're talking 18, 19, 20, and they've been dealing with this stuff for so long, this rationalization of, oh, he's crazy starts to really take hold, but it takes hold in a much deeper way with the parents. And it's sometimes at those ages that kids are ready to come out with really sharp criticism that they have about their parents that they've been holding on to and formulating in their minds how to articulate for a long time. And at the same time, at those ages, And they still do that with a limited perspective. Oftentimes, those young people, they're right about some of the criticisms that they have about their parents. They don't have a full spectrum of experience of adulthood themselves to fully appreciate where their parents are coming from. And by the way, I meant to say, some of you watching this, you might realize mistakes that your parents have made watching this course and that we all make with our kids. I don't accept that anyone uses any teaching or learning from this course to backlash against their parents or hold it against our parents, because we all know that is against Islam. And if Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, if his father was a mushrik who kicked him out of his home, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still told him to be humble towards his father, then we can do that too. So that's not what I'm saying here. But what this ends up culminating in is a type of rejection and a want of separation from the parents when the kids get older into late adolescence, early adulthood. And again, if their parents are what they associate with Islam and being Muslim, the effects can be devastating for that. So we don't want to build up for that. And of course, we all know too, as they get that more independence into late adolescence and early adulthood, and if they go to college, there are all sorts of traps waiting to eat them up. And actually, this particular psychological dynamic I'm talking about, where young people have a tendency to backlash somewhat, their increasing awareness of the world causes them to have some criticisms towards their parents when they're in late adolescence and early adulthood, which can be the seed of a backlash against them. The ideologies and things that are pushed on college campuses and in college classes, and of course, reinforced by the media, sometimes they're primed for those things by the media and entertainment industry as they're going through younger adolescence and childhood. The purveyors of those ideologies, they know how to prey on this psychological dynamic, and they know how to offer the young people at that age an alternative place of psychological comfort. So when we have interactions like this constantly with our young people, we're setting them up for that type of backlash. In some sense, it may be surprising that we haven't seen more of it from our Muslim students. I think it speaks to Islam itself that we haven't. Let's watch another one. Let's watch another video. Give me a moment to get the screen sharing going here. Short clip. See, similar thing here. Bismillah.
Day long. Talking all day. You don't listen to anyone. They're respectfully asking you to put your phone down. You don't. They're respectfully asking you to stop talking. You don't. You just don't stop. You know, sir, I'm trying to get louder. I'm trying to get closer so you hear the instructions. Because you're not hearing the instructions.
You don't need to touch your face with my face. That's the thing. You don't have to take my fucking bubble.
I apologize for the swearing. Sorry, I meant to warn that. But, you know, swearing, I'm going to do a video on swearing. It's something we need to talk our young people out of. But we do have to understand, too, to get in the spaces of our young people, which we do need to do and we need to learn and prime ourselves for, we have to develop a tolerance for that type of thing. We also need to not do it ourselves. Some of you out there, especially younger adults, you've gotten so conditioned to the way, you know, vernacular works in the West that you're casually typing or saying these things. You need to stop that. Okay, sorry.
Do not have to get in my fucking bubble. And you spitting on me too. Don't say shit. Don't say shit.
You are
Don't
so
say shit.
tough. Your toughness is really intimidating. I'm intimidated right
Now, something really interesting is going on here. The young man, again, he's a little older than the one we saw in the last video. He's been through this before, and he's at the point where he is really ready to come back. Now, he just let out a huge stress reaction back at the teacher, who clearly did not know how to de-escalate and didn't know how to do the type of redirection I'm about to teach you, because he says he was asking respectfully, but he sure ain't being respectful now. But after that young man yelled out, he actually relaxed a little bit. His hands came down. His shoulders came down. He's actually relaxed. And the teacher actually relaxes a little bit too, but he starts reamping it up, and you're going to see the young man do something to charge himself up so he can continue arguing here.
now.
I'm totally
intimidated. I'm intimidated by that.
I'm totally intimidated.
No, you're
trying to
make
relax.
this an altercation
He's getting more
because
stress
you
touching his
want
face.
to have a
Okay.
lawsuit.
He's
Well,
walking
that's your
around.
toughness.
You see
I don't
this?
give a fuck
You
about
see what he's doing? Because the teacher couldn't de-escalate, the young man was starting to relax because he'd released some stress. He's actually got to walk a little bit to amp himself up again, to get back into the altercation with the adult. If the adult had, you can just see how clearly he's reacting to what the adult has given him here. It's so clear.
Anything except asking you not to talk and asking you loud now.
I do not care.
Then
I
leave.
don't care.
Then leave.
You're not
Now go.
Look at that young man. Now it's a funny thing. These kids are like sitting on they're sitting on these balls, these yoga balls or whatever. This some schools do to try to help the kids relax, but it don't work if the teacher doesn't know how to be relaxed themselves. Look at the young man in the blue shirt and the backpack sitting in front of him. Do you see what he's doing with his hands? Do you see what he's doing? This tear duct reaction that I'm talking about, he is going through it. Totally different school, totally different context, same exact reaction as that other girl that we saw in the last video. He wants to escape from this situation. And obviously the teacher is not building any respect towards him. Again, these are all non-examples, okay? Just one more, and we'll get to the training videos that I want you to practice along with, inshallah. Let's see here. Got to share the tab. Okay. Now, what I want to pay attention to, well, I'll play it and point out what I want to talk about. Inshallah. Bismillah.
Weary of a stranger, okay? But maybe you don't have good sense because you're sitting here arguing with me and you're making me mad, and I'm going to send you to the office if you don't shut up.
Okay, now you hear the kids say, I mean, this young man, I think he's even more experienced in this. He just says, she's tweaking right now. Okay, that whole formulation of the kid has to justify to themselves that the problem is actually with the adult. A lot of times the problem is with the adult. That there's something wrong with them, and that is why this is going this way. For that kid, it's automatic. Now, I wanted to show this video because we saw the way the lady approached. That's something that's hard to get in these videos because the kids usually whip the phones out after the altercation has already begun. Like in the last one, I would have liked to see how that guy approached that young man from the front of the teaching to getting close to them. You could see very clearly this lady, just her adrenaline just spiked like that when she was triggered. She didn't know how to abort it. Her voice got really loud, and then she walked over. And how did she walk over? She walked over, bent over, and doing this. And people do this to kids. They'll do it to little kids too. You're outside, or you're somewhere. You're in the house. The kids are in the other room. They're playing. They start making noise. They start fighting with one another, and you stomp over. Your posture goes forward. Your arms start flailing. All this type of thing. It's like a very aggressive way of approaching. And all that does is it ramps up whoever the kid you're approaching, it just ramps their stress up more. As you ramp up their stress, the defense walls get up. As the defense walls get up, they are not in a place where they can learn, and you are breaking down the chance of them ever learning anything from you because you're building those defense walls up and bringing the trust down. Now, again, this young man who she approaches, it doesn't intimidate him at all. He's more used to it. He's gone through that deadening process more that I was talking about, and he's used to it. And he just has a simple, very unsympathetic reaction, and he knows exactly who to blame it on. Bismillah. So going back to breathing, facial expression, body language. We're going to watch some videos. I'm going to teach you through how to do all three of these things. They're good things to practice just a lot in general because they contribute to having a calm disposition, a disposition that will be interpreted by kids as safe. And when I say safe, I don't mean safe in a way where you lose authority with them. It's a way that is safe that you gain authority with them and you gain respect from them. And it'll make them want to be nearer to you. And it'll make them want to know your perspective on things because it tells them, it communicates to them with your actions that you are in control. So let's start with breathing. And these are unlisted videos on my YouTube channel right now. I will, over the course of this week, make each one listed, public, so that you can practice them individually more. I'm expecting you to practice. I know it's not what you're used to when you're watching YouTube, but this is a course, brothers and sisters. I'm expecting you to practice with along with what I teach here. Okay, and I'll do a little talking beforehand to reinforce some of the principles and things we need to understand. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. So when you get triggered by kids, your body naturally tenses up, and that can cause you to act on that tension and the adrenaline that is being injected into your body because of that. And it can create tense interactions between you and the young person you're trying to nurture. And that has compounding negative effects. And staying relaxed in your interactions with young people is something crucially important. So you want to abort that adrenaline process instead. You want to relax your face and your body, and you want to shift the part of your mind that you're operating from your hindbrain to your prefrontal cortex, where you can reason better. And this begins with breathing. You want this overall, it involves relaxing your breath, your face, and your body overall, but it begins with breathing, because breathing is something that you do it automatically, but you can take control over it. And your breathing affects your entire rib cage and your entire diaphragm, which is directly connected to your spinal cord, which is where all the messages from your brain are being sent throughout your body. So if you allow all that to stay tense, then your whole body is going to be tense and your overall being is going to be tense. But if you take intentional control of it, you train yourself to relax during that, then you can relax your whole body, and that's the beginning to having successful interactions with young people. I want us to understand, I want to re-emphasize this point. Understand the importance of breathing. This adrenaline reaction, this is about training the body to abort the release of adrenaline into the bloodstream. It's oftentimes somewhat of, it is an automatic reaction. And all those other things I talked about, the tensing of the muscles, the sweat, the clenching of the jaw and the teeth, the straining of the face, those things are essentially, they're automatic reactions that you don't have intentional control over. But the piece that precedes all that is a quickening of the breath, which results in a quickening of the heart rate. And your breathing is something that you do automatically, but it is something that you can take control over if you think about it. And this is the very first step to getting the skills of connecting and being a good leader for young people and someone who they will want to be around and not someone who they will want to reject. You have to train yourself to control your breath so that you abort the release of this adrenaline process. The release of adrenaline is a killer thing. It takes about 27 minutes for adrenaline to run all the way throughout your body. So you can get really worked up with these interactions with kids, and a half hour later, you'll just feel flushed from it. Kids trigger parents and teachers so much that when you are around them a lot for the day, sometimes people, they just run on the adrenaline process all day and constant release of adrenaline. And at the end of the day, you just want to crash. And this is what creates burnout in parenting and in teaching. And aborting it is key to staying on an even keel yourself and not having that burnout. A lot of people talk about self-care these days, and self-care is important. Reminders of self-care. But we have to understand, number one, self-care, self-care is important. You're going to do these things better when you're physically healthy, when you're on a good diet, when you're making your salawats and connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dhikr and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his qadr. But self-care doesn't mean going and relaxing. It doesn't necessarily mean going on a fancy vacation that will stress you out in other ways. Not that that's bad. Those are good things to do with family for other reasons. Doesn't mean going and relaxing and sitting and scrolling for a while, which is going to give you that false dopamine sense and a false sense of reaction. Self-care involves doing proactive, healthy things such as exercising or disciplining yourself to eat less or to eat better or to drink less coffee. Those are self-care types of things. However, if you are not self-caring this way, in a moment-to-moment basis with young people. Any of that other self-care you want to do, you'll start sabotaging it in yourself. You'll begin so stressed out and burnt out and worn out when you're around the kids that you won't, all you'll be able to do when you have time away from them is crash. That's all you'll be able to do. You won't be able to exercise. You'll be susceptible to wanting to eat the high sugar foods and junk food and all that type of stuff that gives you that instant dopamine release, which is the false temporary sense of satisfaction. So self-care with kids is also the same as what you need to do to begin commanding respect with them. And it begins with this thing, which is small yet big, and something that, if done consistently, is so effective, and the effect of it builds over time. Controlling your breath and breathing, understanding how the stress reaction breathing works, which I'm about to explain, and training yourself to do it differently, both with practice beforehand and then reminding yourself to do it in the moment, which is a learning process.
So when a kid does something that triggers you and you start to tense up, what will happen is both your heart rate and your breath will quicken. So this is a practice video to practice the breathing. So we're first going to do a long breath in and a long breath out, just to reflect while doing that of how obvious it is that the breath in is what tenses you up and the breath out relaxes you. So we'll just do that together.
You're going to do this with the video, brothers and sisters. This is not meditation. This is not yoga. This is not Zen Buddhism. It's nothing like that. It is understanding a physiological process that takes place and how we can strengthen and empower ourselves by taking control of it. Practice along with, as I'm about to do, the deep breath here.
Long breath in. And then the long breath out. And it's really obvious what tenses you up. So when your breath starts to quicken, the in gets, it tends to be that the in comes in really strong.
So that's not how you breathe when you're triggered by kids. You don't do it like that. That is, practicing that is meant to just appreciate that breathing in is where the tension comes from, and breathing out is where the release comes from. And the triggering shortens the release out, and it lengthens the breathing in.
Strong, and therefore gets a little more deep, and the out breath gets a little more shallow and quick. They're both quick, but the in breath happens stronger, and you get a breathing that's kind of, more like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how breathing's.
Another way that the breathing goes when you get triggered is like that, like this kind of quick upping of it.
Starts to go when your heart rate increases, which is what happens when you're triggered. So the key to the breathing is that you have to train yourself to lengthen out the out breath more and try to shallow the in breath. And this is something that you want to practice as a way to set your brain to recognize when you're being triggered and to begin training that as your impulsive reaction. And you'll have to do it a few times in real life when the kids when your kids actually do trigger you. But before that, you want to have practiced it as well, because you don't want to have to be thinking about what to do as much when it happens. So you want to think of the breath as like the type of breath you might take when you go from standing up to sitting down, which is a phase where your body naturally relaxes. Maybe standing up to lying down as well, like when you lie down to bed and that relaxation that your body feels. Me, I also think about when I'm sitting, for Muslims, I think about when I'm sitting at the end of the prayer, maybe coming up from the last sujood. I tend to feel very relaxed at that time. And after the taslim, we tend to have these relaxings. And it's an important time to remember Allah and remember the qadr of Allah. And, the patience that belief should give us should help us be patient with our internal selves. So to practice the breathing, we want to like breathe in at one pace and then maybe breathe out at like a count to 3, kind of like this.
Okay, practice along.
We're relaxing as we breathe out, making the deep breath shallow. 2, 3. 2, 3. So you begin like that. Now I'm sitting forward in my chair too. Like if you're sitting down while you do it, I'm going to sit back just to make sure that I can experience the relaxation of like my shoulder muscles and my chest muscles while I'm doing it too. So breathe in shallow and breathe out like to a count of 3. Make the out breath longer.
Relax those shoulder muscles, both in the practice
My face is drawing down and I'm
and in the
relaxing.
moment.
My shoulders are relaxing, and that's leading to relaxation through my whole body. When you get triggered by kids, and that adrenaline spikes, it causes you to want to speed everything up and tense up. But it's very important to slow things down. To slow things down in your interaction with kids, it allows you to think better, and allows you to make better decisions. And this breathing is the first step. Breathe in, out, 3. Just sit with this.
Slowing things down.
And try to practice it. You can do it standing, you can do it sitting, but you want to shorten the in-breath and breathe out, about to a count of 3. It's not like a super like hard in and an exaggerated out breath like maybe they do in some types of meditation or something like that. You want it to be something that happens a little more naturally than that. And
I'm going to put the link of this video into the chat for the benefit of the people who are watching live. You can save it later, and we'll go to the next one here. If I were doing a live training, and with teachers, I've done live training of practicing this. It's something so small, brothers and sisters, but small things done consistently, it's the key to all success. And this is something that's small, but it's always going to be done regularly. So 6-minute video, I know in our YouTube attention spans, it feels like it's a little long, but it's worth giving the explicit attention to. Those of you who are sports fans, when they have a young star in soccer or American football or baseball or basketball, whatever sport you watch, and they're supposed to be all good, they get into the professional league and they struggle right away. What they always say about them is that the game's moving too fast for them when they're at the upper league, and they need to learn to slow it down. This is key to everything that goes on with kids. We have to slow it down. And in these moments, we feel a lot of pressure, but there's actually more time than we realize because everything is happening so quick. So that is breathing, okay? Basic rule of the breathing. Lengthen out the out breath, shorten the in breath because the in breath is what tenses you up. Relax the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Generally, your body language, you want to bring it down and not up because up creates tension, okay? Let's move to facial expression. Practice this outside. If I were doing a real training, I would like pair people up, have you do the breathing in front of each other and examine how you look, all that type of thing, okay? But we're not doing the practicing in YouTube course learning form. Facial expression. There are some big keys to facial expression, and the facial expression and the breathing, they complement each other, and they are so key to this relaxing. Some of you might know that if you're not happy, but you force yourself to smile, it's actually been found that will release serotonin in your brain, which is a chemical that makes your brain feel better, makes you feel better. There is there's debate in these fields about the chicken or the egg, which comes first relationship between, our physiology and our neurology. But it's commonly held that what we do intentionally with our body, it affects our state of mind. It affects our state of mind. Okay. The facial expression, really key things here. Oh, by the way, these things, I'm going through a little further. These are not things I'm just making up. Okay, they're things I've practiced to the nth degree in my career teaching, but they're not for me. Most of it comes originally from a behavior management program called Tools for Teaching by a psychologist from the University of California at Los Angeles named Fred Jones. He studied at the request of Los Angeles Unified School District. He studied their high-need schools where they were having the most behavior problems to help them for decades, all through the 70s into the mid-80s, to try to figure out what they could do with the kids to keep them under control and work effectively with them. He found a big difference between some teachers who were effective in those schools and some were not. And when he analyzed them, he found out that most of the big differences, they came down to this nonverbal communication stuff and body language stuff. So, the whole phenomenon of relying too much on being punitive with kids and punishing them and wanting to do that, there's pitfalls with that. The whole world has experienced that. The West has experienced that as well. But the other end of that, when, okay, I can't yell at the kids anymore, I can't hit them anymore, I can't scream at them anymore, or whatever, what do I do? What people, the miscalculation people make on the opposite end of the spectrum is they end up spoiling the kids and just giving them rewards for everything, material rewards. That messes kids' motivation up in a whole other way. And that's a pitfall too. And actually, that is what is mostly done in American schools, is they give kids little rewards. This more effective stuff with the body language, it's not the stuff that's commonly spread, but it is well researched. I've practiced these methods with different ethnic groups in different countries. Fred Jones's methods, they have been used in different countries across the world. They are cross-culturally effective, and they've been studied in other ways. I have citations of that in my own book. It's stuff that works. It's not the only piece to being effective with kids, but it's laying the foundation. Facial expression.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. So the next thing to relaxing after the breathing, when young kids trigger you and you want to stay relaxed while interacting with them, is with facial expression. Now, the key to a relaxed facial expression is with the jaw and the teeth, because when you get tensed up, your face tightens up, and we associate a tightened face with this shit, with shaming kind of looks, and with anger type of looks, and stressed out types of looks, and we're experiencing stress. And even people who have problems with stress, oftentimes they develop jaw and teeth problems from locking their jaw so much or grinding their teeth when they're really stressed. And the way kids read these facial expressions, they can sometimes have they can have a temporary effect of redirecting them and them reacting to them, perhaps out of fear. But when they get used to you doing that, they become numb to it, and it becomes predictable to them, and they begin to understand that what it's actually signaling is a sense of your own lack of control, your own lack of self-control. And it is a way that kids will begin to signal that they are gaining a sense of power over you. And for kids, it's always natural to test boundaries and to see what they can get away with. That's part of their learning process. So the more that they see they are having control with you, the more likely they are to push that and see just how much control they can have. And they are learning through experience and through your actions that triggering you and antagonizing you is giving them control over you.
And that is exactly what we saw happening in those videos that we showed earlier. And that's also part of where the laughing comes in from kids, because even though they're acting in this high tense way, those adults end up looking like weaklings to the kids because they are letting a younger person control them in effect.
And people who are really having problems with their kids being rude to them and talking back to them, usually this is foundational to why that's happening, because they're continually seeing that they're able to control these stress reactions to you and instigate these stress reactions into you. And the fact that they're not having empathy towards the stress that you're experiencing, it doesn't mean that kid is bad or evil or something like this, or there's something even like totally wrong with them necessarily. But a kid can't empathize with the internal stress experience of an adult because they haven't been an adult before. So it's really just something more out of a learning process. And kids in that they are failing to empathize with you. A lot of parents who are really in these knotted up situations with kids where the kids are being very rude to them. Part of unpacking that begins with teaching the kid how to empathize with you, but that's a different process. But anyway, key to relaxing the face. Again, the jaw needs to be loose and down, and the teeth cannot be clenched, meaning the teeth cannot be touching. So it looks like this, or maybe this. It doesn't look like this. Okay, observe the subtle difference with the teeth clenched and the teeth not clenched. Clenched is I'm tense and I'm not sure and I'm agitated. Not clenched is I'm relaxed, I'm not emotionally affected, I'm in control of myself, which means I'm in control of the situation.
And you can actually hear there, the more relaxed face, it actually does make the voice a little deeper because the vocal cords are not as clenched. And that has a relaxing effect on kids as well. Also notice too, brothers and sisters, the relaxed face, it's not a chipper face. Okay, so we're not talking about like you have to be overly sensitive in this type of thing when the kids are doing something wrong. That's not what this is about. Now, of course, there's times we need to and want to be sensitive. It is part of overall sensitivity to kids. But you can be like really nice, but still be tense. Sometimes I see teachers try to do that. Their thing is, I'm just going to be nice no matter what. And they'll start being like, "Oh, are you feeling okay? Is there something wrong?" or something like this when the kids are worked up, and they're still all nervous and tensed up. It's what the facial expression says to the kids without the teeth clenched, without the teeth clenched, is, I mean business. I'm serious here, and I'm in control of the situation. That's what it says to the kids.
Now, a way you can train yourself to
This
do
is really important.
When you
This
get
is really
triggered,
important.
I have the previous video on breathing. That's the first thing you want to remember, to take that relaxing breath. You want to take that relaxed breath through the mouth and the nostrils, deepening the out breath to get yourself relaxed. Something you can do after the relaxing breath is you can roll your tongue from the roof of your mouth back to what is called the soft palate, which is the part of your mouth where it gets soft, not just to the tip of the soft palate. Because if you have your tongue touching that part of your mouth, it's pretty much impossible for your teeth to clench and for your jaw to lock. You don't necessarily want to, press your tongue too hard to the top, because that might create tension in its own, but just to touch it and roll it back, and it should look like something like this.
Serious face, but in control.
And some people, they find it somewhat therapeutic to maybe like move it back and forth on the soft palate or between the soft palate and the hard palate with the tongue. If you find that therapeutic or stimulating in a satisfactory way that helps you relax, that's what you can do.
Okay, this is really important part, brothers and sisters, because a lot of people, if they're used to being triggered, you're not used to controlling your stress reaction. This whole not letting the teeth clench thing, that can become very hard for people when they're not used to it. So what you can do is instead train yourself to take your tongue and press it to the roof of your mouth, because it will prevent your teeth from clenching. And another benefit of it too is it will make sure you don't use your tongue to say anything. So often a big mistake that parents and adults make is when the kids trigger them, they feel like they got to get right in there and say something. And the first thing that snaps into their mind, they snap out of their mouth. You don't want to do that. The first thing you want, and what you want this breathing to do for you, is to relax you. And you want to take a moment to think. And that is the whole point to slowing things down. You have to give yourself time to think. You can't let that adrenaline speed you up and fall into the trap of feeling like you got to do something right away. And again, this rolling of the tongue, just putting the tongue to the top of the mouth method, it works very well. And if you still need to sit with it a little bit, you can move it back and forth. It's sometimes kind of therapeutic. It can actually help to reset your mind and help your mind not take the situation so drastically and seriously. Not that it's not serious, but again, you need to slow down. This is how I got good at doing this. Now I can be in front of my class, they can trigger me, and I can control my jaw and the teeth without having to do this. But this point really helped me when I was first starting with this. Rolling the tongue. Practice it right now. Easy to practice. No one's even going to know if you're practicing it. Just practice putting the tongue to the roof of your mouth. Roll it back and forth.
But really, I would say once you practice this enough, and again, you want to practice this beforehand, doing it with your kids, remind yourself of it daily as much as you need to, so that you're more prepared to do it in those moments where the kids do.
Let me know if you've practiced it.
And
yes or no in the chat, please.
Yourself to do it.
I want to see some yeses.
Even if you don't do it right away, whatever you're in, remind yourself to do it in those tense moments with your kids. And the more you train yourself to do it, the more natural this will become. It's best you get to a point where you don't have to do that with your tongue, and you just naturally keep the mouth open. So to me, in my experience, that's what happens.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're still going here. Okay, jazakum Allah khairan to everyone who has been with here. We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes of the teaching. Inshallah, I'll try to cap it at 90 minutes because 90 minutes on a live stream exhausts people. But we still have some very, very good stuff to come up because the next video is going to go with how you walk towards, how you turn and approach the kids. And then after teaching you that, I am going to show you a absolutely beautiful real world example of this type of physical walking towards the kids to defuse a tense situation work masterfully. I'm going to show you an absolutely beautiful example that you do not want to miss. So hang on here for about 15 more minutes. First, we're going to go through the turn. To practice this next one, you're going to have to get on your feet. Yes, brothers and sisters, you will have to get on your feet, move around a little bit, find a place to set up. How you turn, practicing a slow turn and walk to the kids. This is where we really get to slowing down the body language. This is so key. So often when kids do stuff that trigger us, we're not physically close at that moment, and we need to get physically close. And it's good to get physically close to kids, but there are high stakes to how you get physically close, because how you do it can either amp the kid up or trigger their defense walls, like we saw that one teacher stomped over to the kid after he made her mad, or it can trigger to them, can affect their own mind to get them more in a place to receive what you're going to say. And it can be approached in a way that maintains your dignity and your respect and makes them open to receive you. And also, all these things will cue to them, depending on what's going on, depending on how expectations are set for the situation. Oftentimes, these things will cue them to just redirect themselves without even having to say anything. And I'll build on that next week, because this week, we're not even getting into what to say to kids. This is just all about working about how we approach them, because this stuff needs to be set. It's definitely equally important to what we say to them. Bismillah. And again, I'll make the videos public this week.
Okay, so breathing, facial expression, we want control over those when our kids do something that trigger us. Now, a lot of times when our kids do something that trigger us, we're not directly in front of them. We're in another room, or we're off to the side or something. So the other big key thing is how we approach them physically when they're doing something we don't want to, or we need to go redirect them. Okay, let's take fighting with siblings as an example. It's a very common one. All right. So what we're going to practice here is turning and walking towards the kids and how it's done. And it's like the other things. The key to it is slowing it down and relaxing it. So first of all, let's say we're in another room, okay, we're in the kitchen or something, doing the dishes or something, and we hear the siblings start arguing in the other room. First of all, the most intuitive thing to do, and what we normally do, is we go, "Hey, stop it!" Now, that type of redirection is almost never worth the breath.
Please remember this, brothers and sisters. Please remember this. Getting physical proximity, especially in the way I'm about to show you, it is always a better bet, pretty much always, than using the voice. It seems like the voice is going to be simpler, but the voice does not really resonate. The voice, the kids can easily act like they don't hear. Sometimes they don't even fully process it, and they will easily get numb to it. And again, the loud voice, the yelling across the room is acting on the stress reaction. It is not aborting the stress reaction. So it actually takes more out of you than getting up and showing what I'm going to show you here. Physical proximity, better than yelling across the room. Remember that.
For one thing, you got triggered when you heard them start arguing or start doing whatever, making some loud noise or whatever they're not supposed to be doing, or maybe even just something you could see out of the corner of your eye. You got triggered, and then you acted on the triggering by trying to release the tension in your body immediately, which allows the adrenaline to spike through
your body, which wears you out in the long run. And you do that yelling, you get like an immediate sense of small relief, but it's not, but it's only a moment before you tense right back up because the kids don't respond to it. It's as if they don't hear you. And the fact that they don't respond to it, don't hear you, it just makes you tense up in an even harsher way that feels even more tiring because it didn't work. And this is part of how you're building compound stress in your life, both within the course of a day and over the course of a lifetime. Now, let's say instead of yelling, you're going to turn and go. Even if we do that, when we turn and go, the way it normally looks,
He's like the lady in the video.
in the kitchen doing whatever. We will be in the kitchen doing whatever. We hear the kids start arguing, start making some sort of noise, and our immediate reaction is to turn like this, which takes about 1 second to do.
Quick turn.
And it's quick.
Don't want this.
And it's filled with tension.
Don't want the quick
now,
turn.
That 1 second turn,
No, sir, no, ma'am.
Instead, is turn that into a 5 or 6 second turn. So what is that?
You heard that correct, brothers and sisters. That little turn that we do in 1 second. Oh, yes. We want to lengthen it out to 5, 6 seconds. I am not joking with you, brothers and sisters. This works. It's a great way to slow things down. It also gives the kids a lot to respond to. They notice this more actually from the corner of their eyes. Kids actually have better peripheral vision than adults. And gives them the chance to self-redirect, especially because the way we're going to do this turn, it communicates that you have control and that you are serious and that you know what you're doing.
That look like? It's going to look like this.
And yes, this works for males and females.
So in the kitchen or
It's
wherever.
more studied with females than males.
To be in the camera. I hear the kids start arguing. Or I see something in the corner of my eye they're doing that I don't like. I want to turn like this. And as I'm turning with that walking pace, I'm slowing myself down.
How do you do that?
Even before I turned my head, I took that relaxing breath and made sure my face was decompressed, my jaw was not locked, and my teeth were not clenching. And I'm reminding myself of that breathing pace, lengthening the out breath as I walk towards the kids. Now, what's the key to doing this turn? When you do the quick turn, the more natural turn, what moves first is your feet. And it's like this.
It's key.
When you do the 5 second turn, there's no way you can do a 5 or 6 second turn by going feet first.
Can't go feet first.
When you do the 5 or 6
Top
second
down.
turn, you have to go from the head down. Think of it like turning your head, then your shoulders, then your waist, and then your feet. And yes, it feels unnatural when you first do it. This is why you have to practice it.
Got to
And
train
it's worth
yourself.
Practicing it. I'm going to do it again.
It's not
You can
impulsive.
practice it with me.
It's practiced. Head first, shoulders, hips. The turn goes top
Okay,
down.
the kids make noise. I take my relaxing breath. Turn the head, slow. Shoulders, slow. Waist, feet.
Oh, yes. He's serious.
And again, that signals to kids that you're in control. Their actions have not put you out of your own emotional control. And because you're in control of yourself emotionally, you're in control of the situation. Now, the next thing that comes after that is when you get in front of them and then what to say to them. However, I will tell you this process, the breathing, the facial expression, and then the slow turning, there is nothing that cues and prompts kids into self-correcting behavior without having to say anything more than this. Trust me, 12 years of teaching experience of kids of all ages, that is one of the truest facts that I've learned.
Best way to get the kids to self-correct, and that's the cheapest way. I'm putting the link to that in the chat. Those of you in the live chat, you can have early access to these, but I'm going to make them public over the course of the week. I expect you to practice this, brothers and sisters. I'm about to show an example, a real-life example, intense example of how well this works. It's absolutely beautiful. I expect you guys to practice this, okay? If you're not doing it right now in the live stream, go back and watch this. Get up out of your feet. If you want to use the video from the chat to follow along with, or when I post it later, I expect you to practice this. You will be thankful for the practice when the moment when the next moment comes up, and the next moment is coming. For those of you who have kids, the next moment's coming soon. For those of you who don't have kids, inshallah, may Allah make it soon for you, because we want you to have kids. Abdullah, Jazakallah khairan. I should have known this before I had kids. I would like to know anyone else who this is new to them, and maybe you are, and we're all guilty. I'm guilty of it. Should have. Alhamdulillah, there's no video of my first year and a half teaching. Alhamdulillah, and it's from the blessings of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala that He put me around other good educators who introduced me to some of these things early in my career. Otherwise, I would not have made it as a teacher. And most teachers, they actually quit within their first 2 years of teaching because of this. But if you also have the similar sentiment, or you're guilty of some of these things before, please let us know in the chat. I'd be happy to please let us know. Jazakumullah khairan. Okay, I have another video that goes over how to get up from sitting. It's similar to the turning. I'm going to save that to just release it later this week on YouTube. But to appreciate the effectiveness on this, for the skeptics out there, if you are a skeptic as to whether or not these things work, we're going to watch an intense, real-life example of a brother beautifully executing a slow approach to the kids. And you will see in the body language of what's going to happen here, the benefits of the slow approach. Inshallah, some of you recognize what this video is. It was a viral video, I think, a few years ago. I believe it was in New Jersey. Could be wrong. Forgive me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, someone corrects me in the comments or chat. From our brother, what we're going to see here is some teenagers fighting in the streets, kids with the cameras, egging them on, whole type of thing. And our brother, who goes by the name Ibn Ali Miller, he comes in and he intervenes in this. And he changed these kids' lives by doing it. The story is well known. You can look it up. This is something too, even if we're not parents out there, people nowadays, they are afraid to approach groups of young people, even though they actually want to be approached, but you have to know how to do it the right way. But there's actually research that backs this up. Increasingly, adults themselves are too scared, too timid, too afraid. They can be in public knowing kids are doing something wrong, and they'll just walk away from it. They're too scared of the kids. Too much feeling of incompetence. Brothers and sisters, we need to get over this. We need to learn competence ourselves. We need to try to become examples for people who can shape all youth, not just the Muslim youth, but all young people in right ways. Of course, we want to begin with our own. So common, 12 years ago, no one accepted kids. Well, kids weren't on their phone during Jummah, but they wouldn't be distracted. SubhanAllah, sometimes we see it in the masjid these days, groups of kids sit in the back, they're on their phones during Jummah. No one knows how to just go walk up to them. I want you to think about doing that and start to get the confidence of doing that. Now, this brother here, okay, you have a group of kids who are about to fight for whatever reason. We're going to break this down and see exactly what this brother does here. Now, when it went viral, a lot of attention has been paid to what he says to the kids afterwards. But what's missed is the part that came before that. And what actually made him successful, through my analysis, with what he says to the kids and endeared the kids towards him, is the way that he approaches in the beginning. It happens quick, but it's slowed down, and it's so crucial. We're going to play it, and then I'm going to slow the video down. Okay, fighting. Again, excuse the swearing, okay? We know how young people are. We need to teach them. Okay, I'm going to slow it down. I'm going to make the playback speed 0.75, just so we don't miss what we need to do. Kids are all yelling. It's a big jam. Okay, watch the one kid with the phone and the boots coming across. Watch his head right here.
What's good? What's good, nigga?
Okay, that kid, he notices something. And if we look in the middle of the screen on the right, we have an adult. Sorry, I got to make this bigger. We have an adult approaching it. And the one kid on the side with the phone clearly notices it. Now watch the kid, the skinnier one with the red shoes. He's reading something from the face of his peer that he's in this face-off with. They're about to have their lives changed, alhamdulillah. Watch what he does here.
Square up.
Look at him turn that head. So he's noticing someone coming as well. Now, we can't quite see the brother yet in the video, but we're about to see them. But we can already see he's having an overall effect on the kids because some of them saw him come. Some of their heads turns. Their facial expressions changed when they saw him, enough that even the kid who had his back turned to him turned and looked. Now watch the kids as he's approaching, but he's not there yet.
Go ahead, brown niggas.
Okay, they need to be egged on by their friend. The one's got to say, go ahead. He senses them slowed down. Okay, the kids who are getting the big rush out of it by filming it, they got to egg him on, tell him to go ahead. He turns. Now you see the two young men here. They are totally faking it right now. They are totally faking it at this point. Yes, they're squared off, but their fists, they're not up like they were before. Their fists are loosened. And they are actually hoping this adult who we see here, look at him right there. They're actually hoping this adult is going to intervene. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. If we look at the brother, look at him. Look at the brother as he's walking. He might as well be out for a stroll in the park as he is approaching these kids. He's completely calm and cool. He's not huffing and puffing getting over there. He's not yelling at them from afar. He's not running over and rushing over, saying, stop it. Totally normal walking pace approach. And the kids have noticed it. And the kids have picked up. And the kids are already having it settle into them. And they are actually hoping that he's going to do what he's about to do. Now, when he gets in here and he says something, I want you to just watch the body language of these two young men and ask yourself, are their defense walls going up? Is their stress level going up? Are they getting agitated? Or is his presence now relaxing them? And is it making them open to them? I want us to watch and consider this.
Everybody in your phones, though.
Look at that right there. Look at that. As soon as he comes in and starts saying something, now his presence can't be ignored, but they knew it was coming anyway. Look at them. They've gone from the aggressive fighting posturing to now they're standing up straight and they're relaxed and their hands are below their hips. Now, what the brother does after this, what he says about this,
y'all the real cow.
which has gotten the more attention, I might do another video to break that down more. There's actually, I think there's things I would have done differently personally, not judging him for the situation. But he doesn't even need to be perfectly effective with what he says to them after this, because he's already won them here. These kids, they seem like they're out of control. They seem like they're so bad. They seem like they're a lost cause to a lot of people. That is 100% not true. And brothers and sisters, I teach in the inner city. I teach 4 blocks from where George Floyd is killed. It is true that kids are 100% insecure. Even kids who have this front of being tough and all that shell, they are insecure underneath it all. And they are in desperate want of leadership and guidance from people. But they are only going to take it from people who can show them that they have control of themselves and that they have the right thing to offer them. And brothers and sisters, us as Muslims, we do have the right thing to offer people. 100% we do have the right thing to offer people. So I won't go into the rest of this video, but I want you to rewatch this and just appreciate what people missed about this video. It's not what he says to them. I mean, what he says to them actually is, it's effective and the point and everything. But he built a whole relationship with these kids after this. He built a whole relationship, turned their lives around. And it began with that slow, calm approach that he had into this ultra tense situation that most people would run away from, even adults. Brothers and sisters, Jazakumullah khairan. We've been teaching for about 90 minutes. I am so grateful to everyone who has been in the chat and participating and live. Comments that you left in the chat, please leave comments. Help the algorithm. Please like, please share with people. Leave comments, leave questions you want me to answer further, more, leave them. in the description box. I have a link to where you can book a 30-minute meeting with me if you like. It's no charge. I'm more than happy to talk with people, to be a collaborative thought partner in issues that you're going through with young people, or things you're wondering about, or whatever, things about education. Please book a meeting with me. I'm more than happy to meet with you. We need to open up talking about what we're doing with young people and our hopes with young people. Let's stop feeling so self-conscious about it. Okay, everyone's struggling. We need to talk about it. I'm more than happy to be that person who talks. If nothing else, please leave a salam in the chat or in the comments, and please share it with people. Anything good that I said is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. All praise is due to him. Anything wrong that I said comes from the evils and the deficiencies within my own soul and within my nafs. I ask Allah for forgiveness for myself first and foremost, and then for all of us. I ask Allah to rectify our affairs, to protect us and protect our young people, and I seek repentance to him alone. Brothers and sisters, jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Next time, next week, same time, 9 o'clock, we'll start to go into what do you do when the kids talk back. You get into the situation, you might have to say something. Sometimes you don't have to say something. Sometimes just looking at them is enough. What do you do when they talk back? That's what we'll start getting into next time, inshallah. Please share. Look out for the unlisted videos to become public through the week. Might do another live midweek or something that's not the formal course. Please share, brothers and sisters. Please share with people. Khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.